though, having seen game 1, the bar for victory, the bar for a good day for NIP has changed from, of course, win the day. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. I'm always going to acknowledge it. But realistically, if I see NIP with an over 1.5 thousand gold lead at any point in this game, in this series, I'm calling that a win for them.
I think they can do more than that. I think that this is a team that can surprisingly turn up the pace if they really want to. It's kind of what I want to see. Most importantly for me, I think Jarvan being left up is huge here. I think that kind of, to me, has to be the first pick. If you want to go in that direction, this would be so greedy if they wanted to go for it blind as the first pick potential option. It does look like they want to hover it. Okay. It's going to be the Aurora locked in here. First pick for Ninjas in Pyjamas. That's super interesting. I would imagine this is for Care in the mid lane, that this is going to be the direction they want to go to give him more agency. We saw him on a carry in the previous game, obviously, with the Azir. This is much more assassin-oriented than the Azir is. It can be more of a playmaker, but not quite the roamer that we were expecting out of the mid lane. Going to be interesting to see if he can step up, but look what you hand over to BLG. It's one of the scariest comps in the game, like I was talking about, that Jarvan, and you pair it with the Nico.
I felt that like a knife to the heart. Nico, I was like, it's forgivable. Sure, you wanted Aurora, but giving over Jarvan Nico is just A2, you know? What are you gonna do? This is very, very scary, like you mentioned, and NIP at this point have got to throw some haymakers back. Unfortunately for me, Corki is not that haymaker, and Sejuani, as mentioned in the pregame for you, also wouldn't be. Nami, not a haymaker champion. That's all I'm saying. I'm not seeing... Are you seeing...
I'll give them some credit. I'll give them some credit here. They're kind of doing what I asked, which is generating tempo and pressure. You have a mid laner who's going to be relatively strong in the early and in the mid game to be able to skirmish, who will scale. And you have a bot lane 2v2 that is designed to win lane. And yes, you had that last game with the Ashe and the Seraphine, and yes, you were completely neutral in gold throughout the entire early game, so maybe it's not the most consistent thing in the world, especially now with the Ezreal getting drafted on the other side, who can quite literally just play safe. He can just sit back and not worry too much, but at the very least, they're going to try and tempo this game out. The big question is, like, where do you go in the jungle right now? For me, the obvious bans for BLG are things like Malphite, things like Nocturne, to take off the board to pair up with this Aurora. Just take away all the tools that can play alongside this mid laner and force something more aggressive. Like, I don't want to say a Kiana, but like, we're really starting to run low on champions that Guwon has actually played throughout this split, and kind of looks like BLG is going to take my advice on this one.
You know, if the Aurora is any indicator, maybe Guwon is going to pick something a little new. It could happen. I do like that the Nocturne gets taken out, though. It seems like BLG are really on the same page. It's exactly what you're talking about. You've already got a strong core. Eliminate the threats to that core that accentuate NIP's playstyle, and you're going to be able to do that pretty darn well. A Sylas ban is interesting. I think it's
Sylas
right.
into
It's
Aurora
right.
matchup. Yeah,
it's good.
You don't want to worry too much about Knight taking over the game on Sylas. That would be quite scary. Knight has already shown that he can beat you on one of his signature champions. You maybe don't want to give him another one. Force him to play something else in this particular instance. I'm really looking at the Ahri as like an obvious ban for Ninjas in Pyjamas. On the other side of this, it's actually the Yone ban coming in as that double flex potentially with the Aurora. Yone likely the top side of that for Hoya. If they did want to go in that direction, I would imagine, but it leaves up the Malphite, and that to me, you know, could be something key. You would be indexing pretty heavily into AP damage, but at the very least, Guwon would feel comfortable on the pick, and that's not something I can say for a lot of other champions on the board right now.
Yeah, very, very well could be locking that in. I like the idea of a Malphite being picked up here. We do still have whole side of top available to be picked for both mid and top lane. I think it's likely we see Bin pick something safe up here that safe in terms of blindable. I will remind everybody that Renekton, there we go, is actually still up for Hoya, was what I was thinking of, but I suppose if Bin wants to take it, you can just win topside for free.
Yeah, I mean, you can take your top side here. I think that makes sense. I was so scared of Knight's Ahri coming in. I think if you see Ahri in this comp, you're like, all right, we might just we might have some trouble here. But the Renekton, you know me, I'm going to shill for Renekton. I think he's still incredibly strong. I think he's so good in lane. He's gotten buffed a lot to be more useful in team fights. He pairs super well with the Ezreal as well because you can set up a lot of that poke damage coming in more efficiently. You have so much dive already that a Renekton flank can be really dangerous onto something like Corki, who might have to burn a lot of his mobility tools, staying away from Jarvan and staying away from Nico. What I don't want to see is something like Dr. Mundo here. It's the lock-in here for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and it relatively pairs well with this Aurora, but once again, you're ceding so much early game pressure over to Bilibili Gaming, where Mundo kind of needs to scale to get online.
And early game is where BLG made their money in game number 1, so all the scarier. I find myself wondering, more what BLG's last pick is going to be than whether NIP we're going to lock in Jace. This to me does not change the composition that much.
I will say, I become more intrigued if this Mundo goes top, and if this Jace goes to the jungle. That becomes a lot more interesting. Of course, Knight's already still left up, so maybe this entire point is moot. It's his best champion, and he gets to lock it in with the Jarvan, with the Renekton, with an Ezreal Nico on the bottom side to be able to create so many plays from on. It's basically the same formula that BLG played in the previous game. It looks like Jace is going to be going to the top side. Of course, those nerfs coming into Jace jungle still, he's relevant, but he's not quite as strong as he was. It looks like it is just going to be that matchup specifically into Renekton. And you're looking at a comp that, once again, has a very specific win condition for NIP, except you might not have the same kind of flexibility that you had in game number 1. NIP, for sure, have tools to be able to scale into the late game, and you do have things like Jace and Corki and Nami, but if this Mundo Aurora in the middle of the map just doesn't have tempo, and if this top side from Renekton, Jarvan, Ahri, and with Nico, once again being able to move around the map, if that gets out of control, it can just snowball so fast.
Yeah, he's I'm gassing myself up to give NIP some props in the early game, to let them have their victories, because the draft for me has been a disaster. BLG got everything that they ever could have wanted or asked for in game 2 of a Fearless, and I don't think, personally, to be very diplomatic, that NIP did a lot to deal with that. They picked things that were in a vacuum, strong to okay, and BLG picked things that were awesome to fantastic. And that's where I'm walking away from this draft with, like you said, an extraordinary amount of early jungle and mid pressure coming out of BLG. Can NIP answer back in game number 2? Which lands harder, the Gyos or those first 3 autos from Renekton?
Unfortunately, right now, it might be the autos, and not really what you're looking for as that early trade, but things could definitely be worse on the top side. We've been talking a lot about where BLG can win with this draft, but I do want to take a second to at least acknowledge that in a vacuum, NIP's comp definitely can work. I'm a little bit adverse to it because it seeds so much pressure in the early game, and that was something they struggled with in game number 1, but this Dr. Mundo will eventually be very scary. Corki Aurora, a very dangerous late game duo, and there's no true tank on the side of BLG if they do get into the late game. They're also not exactly the most hyper carry-esque damage, setup of all time. If this Mundo does get big, things can get kind of bad for BLG, but once again, it's kind of relying on the fact that NIP can punish these leads, which is not necessarily something that they have shown that they've been able to do. Definitely going to be looking at top and bot lane. They had great matchups in game number 1. They once again have good matchups in game number 2. What can they do with them?
Another X factor here is Hoya's Jace. When he was put on Varus, he was scary enough that BLG have banned it 2 games in a row. On Jace, against a Renekton matchup, a matchup that was picked specifically for Hoya to win it, you have to imagine, you have to hope that he can be scary enough. Been already on top of him early game and going pretty even right now, but Hoya could still win this. Needs another transformation and a couple more autos, but none are going to land underneath the tower. Bin gets away with an even trade.
Yeah, and Hoya has to be a little bit careful here. That flash from Bin can be deadly, so you definitely have to make sure you're not in range of that. For now, it's just going to be the shove under the tower. Both top laners going to be happy to take their trade, recall, and burn their teleports early. Not going to be too much of a worry as the mid laners do the same. I do want to point out that as much as we're talking about a potential, you know, matchup advantage in these side lanes, it's not quite that simple. Guwon in the mid lane on the TP.
Instantly going to force the flash out of Knight. Sometimes Dr. Mundo just in the right place at the right time. Shun also right place, right time to at least keep that gank from going sideways. And oh, doesn't get a flash back. Ahri without flash pre-6. Really impactful. Ahri without flash in 2 levels. Not going to be so much, so look to punish again.
Yeah, it's really nice to at least get that flash early. Guwon gonna try and get another one up top here.
I love it. Same thing happening bot side, though, and Assum does not know this is coming. Ends up flashing away that ward in the tri-brush, saving them with just a few seconds of warning. And Bin, top side, has gone way too low to be comfortable. He's going to have to back away under tower. And reminder, this Renekton has no teleport.
Yeah, this is horrible for this Renekton. You wanted to talk about a situation where the top side needed to get that pressure. They got it. Mundo's going to get a lot of camps on the top side for this as well. Going to be able to steal away that Gromp. Be able to get some vision onto the blue buff as well. So overall, a very big win for NIP, a team that we talked about. Like, their biggest flaw in this game is the fact that they don't really have ways to play the early game. If they're winning anyways with this comp, then things really do become a lot easier for them to play out. It's a nice 300 gold lead, but overall, it's just going to be some summoners blown around the map, and no kills going over. First blood still on the table.
Guwon's so active on Dr. Mundo early, visiting 2 lanes. I'm very, very happy with this state of affairs. As it stands, though, the topside freeze for Hoya did have me concerned. That is a really nice move to be able to pull off against Bin early on. Again, with some assistance from the jungle. Just now going to tick over to 5, leaving him ahead of Bin on the race to level 6 as well. Not as impactful for Jace in terms of combat ability, but really impactful when you think about denying that to Renekton for a little bit longer, being able to abuse him in this matchup with the range for just a few seconds more. First dragon has just come up, and like we mentioned in game 1, there is going to be a lot said about this game with who ends up taking that, where, why, and we've got an extra minion in the mid lane.
Yeah, a small minion, I think. Oh, Care.
Went a little too long without seeing that one. Will take a lot of his health bar for it, but fortunately will not die for it. Does open up the dragon for BLG.
No, it was so dangerous for the mid laner there. On burning his flash creates this aggressive play, but what I was going to point out with Dragon spawning on the map is that in that play earlier with the Jarvan gank, NIP's bot lane had to burn both of their flashes. That makes this Dragon contest more difficult as Guwon can walk into the Jarvan. They're going to be staring at each other. Nobody else is in the area though, so Shun's just going to have to back off even with that pressure. For now, it's just going to be movement towards the top side for this Jarvan as Dr. Mundo stays in that bottom river. So many flashes are burned everywhere around the map, and we've not even gotten an objective take yet.
Last real super fun time for Hoya as Bin will hit level 6 off this wave, and Shun is right in the area as well, so Hoya overstays here. This whole top side could go sideways very quickly. Shun will instead back off into the jungle. And Hoya's going to have to play a little bit safer for the next few minutes, actually dipping in to refresh some vision for himself, as it is NIP who pick up the first dragon.
Definitely interesting to see the lack of priority from dragons for BLG throughout this series. Really figured they were going to at least try and pressure that one out. Of course, the push on the bot side from NIP because of that roam from On definitely helps create more of that setup, and that's generally why that play is made in the first place, but lack of flashes in level 5 here on NIP. They got to be really scared of a potential Nico.
If we think about it, the first game did have a lot of priority for BLG. On the top side, looking at things like Rift Heralds and Void Grubs, of which I will remind everybody, they did weirdly only take 2.
Definitely kind of a funny turn of events there, especially with the Ziggs. Maybe they felt they didn't need it. They already had such a big gold lead by the time they got to that point in the game that they weren't super concerned. They're not going to have that gold lead in this one. Dragon going over to NIP. Bit of early gold as well going over to NIP because of that top side, but the small leads being able to be generated here. Knight, 10 CS up on Care, that is good. Viper, a significant amount up on Assum, which is to be expected in this particular matchup as he starts to get plates. Junglers in the area, very few flashes on the bottom side here.
Right place, right time, though, for the jungler. I really like the way that Guwon is playing right now. Even on the Dr. Mundo, he has been, as we say, getting active earlier, but also playing defensively in just the right ways. Shun is left without a play to make on the bot side. I will remind people, however, that we've got, hold on, level 6 is hit top side, as we mentioned, for Bin, who looks for a trade on Hoya, and I'm going to say that Hoya is safe, so thinking about this a little bit more. Critical trade of cooldowns in the mid lane. Remember, Care flashed earlier. He still doesn't have that for the next 2 minutes. And Knight, now with flash, level 6, Ahri. Care might be half health, but that's kill range.
Yeah, we'll see. Knight definitely gonna have to play safe here. I really would have expected Shun to have prioritized Void Grubs a little bit earlier than this because of that flash advantage on Knight. Wanted to make sure that he could get as much gold as possible before making his way to the top side. We'll see the direction that they want to go. Knight does have teleport if they want to go and make a more aggressive play. I actually do see a TP coming in. It's going to be Knight coming back, so we do have that TP locked and ready to go, as it looks like BLG just want to full send it. That's what we were expecting here. Thought it was going to be a little bit earlier, but at the end of the day, BLG, with that topside pressure coming in, going to be able to take that. Can Viper survive the counterplay, though?
He's, like you said, just got to play safe down here, and still has both summoners available, so this tower dive is going to take a lot. Guwon doesn't want to take the extra tower shot. Is it half health Zhuo? And again, Viper survives bot lane while play is made topside. We saw the same thing happen in game number 1.
Yeah, except this time it's even better for Viper. He just has to burn the barrier. He keeps his flash on that play, and it's not his flash that gets burned, it's Guwon's who gets his flash burned. So a lot of the playmaking tools for NIP not really being put to good use. The small leads they were able to generate before this not necessarily going anywhere. As On makes his way back into the 2v2 on the bot side, you have to imagine that there's going to be some aggression shown down there. This Corki and Nami, while they've been good, they've not been dominant in the way that you would hope this 2v2 would have been. It's really going to be up to Hoya, who is kind of the lone player with a significant gold lead on the side of NIP.
And in contrast to game number 1, where we saw Assum around the mid-game at least be the gold advantage, right now at the 10-minute mark, still lagging a little behind, and On with a flash and a double Pop Blossom is going to pick up not just first blood, but a double kill for Viper.
What's the opposite of a caster curse? Like, what, a caster call out? I don't know, because you talk about the bot lane, and there you go. On makes his way down there, blows the flash, and absolutely blows up NIP. This is the power of the Nico, and this is the problem for Ninjas in Pyjamas, is that it's so easy for these plays to be made for BLG at this point. It's a 1k gold lead for Viper, and these fights aren't going to get easier until they start hitting their 3rd item power spike, around when they can start really playing through this unkillable Dr. Mundo, until you can really start to get that guy online. It's not going to feel very easy. Again, this is such an effortless engage is the word I'm looking for from On, where he just sees a trade going down. NIP have no business being able to trade here with the Nico ultimate up. Pop Blossom comes through. You get the damage coming in from Ezreal. It's a free double kill in the 2v2, and now all of a sudden BLG are looking at a very, very clear gold lead.
And for those of you who may not have taken stock, Assum and Zhuo did both die with flash up in that scenario, which is going to be really important around the next dragon should they want to contest it. But that contest is happening right now as On does go low, but a Cataclysm lands onto Guwon, who instantly gets taken down. The focus from BLG, unavoidable. On will be answered back as Care fakes getting out over the wall, but will be spotted out by sweepers and chased down in the jungle. First charm not going to land onto him, as Assum is actually here to help him out. Maybe Care gets out of this. Maybe it's just a 1-for-1, but Knight says no, flashing over the wall to take down Care. Another charm landing. This should be the end of the play for BLG.
You would think, but Assum's so far forward. He's just gonna die. He's just way too far forward. That's not even with Ahri charm. It's flash for flash on the top side. It's chaos everywhere, Dia, around the map. Everything is happening right now, and it's BLG who once again come out on top in this massive play. It's just an overextension from NIP. It's not understanding that they're not on a timer where they can actually fight this. Dragon is up, and they do want to try and start stacking these, but there's no way to be able to contest this objective at this point in the game. Guwon, as much as we could talk about the Mundo potentially getting to a spot where he can be unkillable, is certainly not at that point just yet. And Viper is the one who gets to benefit from it, picking up yet another kill. That's a 3-0-1 Ezreal. If we're talking about, oh, I don't know if BLG is going to have enough damage in the late game, that is solved almost entirely by this Ezreal getting really, really far ahead. And things are once again looking very, very good for BLG.
And if things go anything like game one, we're also going to be sitting here going, late game? What late game? Game one finally mirroring itself here as well. BLG have the opportunity in this time to take second Dragon, and they forego it. Dragon's just really not the priority for BLG at all in this series. It is gold, and at the cost of all else, should they need it. On gonna move on forward, maybe look for a small bit of damage, not quite an engage, onto Zhuo, but this is still a 2.6k gold lead for BLG, and an Ezreal that hits like a truck.
Yeah, this Ezreal is doing a lot. Look at the item difference between these two 80 carries. That's why BLG's walking forward here.
Also got Knight in the jungle as well. Cataclysm instantly onto Guwon. Going to be answered back by the tidal wave, and Kara is here as well. So very quickly, we see Shun fall. Knight will be able to get away with the last 2 charges of his ultimate. Now Viper turns his attention on to Kara, who has stepped a little too far forward, collecting a double kill on Guwon as well with a smooth shot over the wall.
It's beautiful from Viper on this Ezreal. He styles on that fight. Shun goes in without the rest of his team. Knight tries to follow up, but the mid-jungle duo are a little bit disconnected, so things don't go quite according to plan. But boy, Viper being online certainly saves quite a lot. He bursts through the Aurora, he bursts through the Mundo, he destroys the Nami, he wins the fight basically solo on his own, and now this 4-0 into Ezreal is just going to get harder and harder to deal with. Bin, who is at a gold disadvantage still, now getting plates to catch back up. It's getting worse and worse. We get to see the replay here. Shun does end up getting the steal onto the Gromp, disgustingly enough, over the wall. He goes in onto Guwon, but just overestimates his burst damage a little bit there, where him and Knight aren't quite able to take down the Mundo at this point. Knight does get himself back to safety over the wall, but look at Viper throughout this entire fight. Look at the health bars of Guwon, Zhuo, and Assum. He's completely destroyed this team, and why not 1Q for your trouble on the back end here for Guwon as well. What an amazing game from the BLG AD carry that we wanted to see more out of.
Yeah, just makes him even scarier, and Viper, especially when he's got a lead, is going to be terrifying. Everybody knows it. Everybody in the whole LPL is aware that even if Viper hasn't been having the best season of his life, you don't give the guy 2.2 thousand gold.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of fear right now on the side of NIP. Still ways to be able to catch up. That's what you talk about with these scaling comps, but you can't really afford to make mistakes as BLG. Now pressuring out the Rift Herald. If they get this with the comp that they already have, that becomes very scary because it's even more plates on a side lane comp that you already feel comfortable playing into the late game.
For context, Viper is, in fact, arcane shifting forward in a 2v3, and it's working. Now, fortunately for NIP, they do get to move and take a little bit of the jungle. Will they get first tower, though? Is BLG actually in position to take this? And On in position to find another engage in the mid lane. Assum is deleted, and Zhuo gets out alive. While all that's happening, Knight manages to pick up first tower, and Viper is answered back with a flash from Guwon, and maybe a double kill from Guwon in the mid lane.
He's not even done. Shun's gonna chase him down, but does he have the damage? Yeah, he's done. Shun's gonna be able to pick up the trade kill there, but that's a big shutdown going in favor of this Mundo. I can block the shock blast coming in from Hoya. Could have been very, very bad onto that Jarvan if it did end up landing. Still, overall, not a bad play. Even if you do get this Herald crashing into the mid lane, you don't take the tier 1 tower in the mid lane, and you do get some of that gold onto Mundo, who is your win condition. Again, that shutdown gold going in favor. The Nami heal not coming through. I think that is definitely, you know, going to be a bit of an oopsie there, maybe from Zhuo, who might be a little nervous. But we're going to get a replay of this play. Once again, it's just On in the 2v2, realizing, like, hey, you're quirky. Why are you stepping up? What is the intention behind your thought process here? As Viper, unfortunately, taking a couple of tower shots to try and damage Zhuo a bit too much. That leaves Guwon an opportunity to be able to come in. And this is a lot of gold going on to the Dr. Mundo. It's well played to get the flash. Even if you have to trade your life here, you're certainly going to feel comfortable with this. But at the end of the day, BLG not worried too much. You still end up getting a kill in that instance. And, you know, the frustration's still coming through.
I really enjoyed that reaction from near elation to God dang it. Watching the Dr. Mundo pick up a little bit of extra gold like you talked about, actually pretty significant. It isn't going to increase NIP's pressure in a huge way in terms of their damage, but what it will do is give their front line an even scarier threat. Like you talked about, Dr. Mundo is the only true front line in this game, and if he can become immortal, which is still a couple items away, but if he can become immortal, that will significantly hurt BLG's, say, game plan. Game 2 on
Nami
tidal wave, as we've got yet another Cataclysm. Zhuo and K are going to be locked in here. But they do both get away without taking too much damage. In fact, it is BLG that's taken a little bit more, specifically on Shun. Zhuo will be able to heal up the rest of the team, and NIP would still contest for third dragon.
The problem is they have no inside track to be able to push through. You don't really have a good front line here if you're BLG, but so much damage coming out with this Ezreal poke. You have to make a decision fast if you're NIP.
Right now they're going to try and group up, head back into the jungle. They will actually spot Bin, who is sitting there on the flank. I was gonna call it a Giga flank, but then I remember what Guwon pulled in game 1, and nothing's quite Giga compared to that. BLG will take this dragon. NIP choose not to contest for it, and their decision made is to back off and just grab a little bit of farm, Kman. It's safe. It's not stylish, but it's safe.
I mean, this is the correct play in every universe here. The moment that you're not able to burst down that Jarvan before the fight starts, you have no way of being able to get back into this Ezreal poke. Very worth noting, Guwon goes Randuin's as his second item in this game. See how that ends up panning out for him as Knight. The target on the top side.
Likely going to be taken out as well. Pretty squishy on Ahri. Last auto will land, and it'll be Hoya that collects the kill. Bot side, however, things do not go NIP's way as Care will be taken out as well. Both mid laners falling, both mid laners going to be back at around the same time, but crucially, Hoya, a little bit of alone time, is going to get himself some gold on the top side and could look for more, as a dive is possible, and I say that as Bin teleports up to the top side, and suddenly it is not.
A dive is very unlikely against a Renekton with ultimate available here. It's actually Bin who's going to look to play aggressive, even with them in range. He's going for it.
Flashed forward. And Shun's here as well, which I suppose just denies any answer from NIP. That is a dead Jace. And not even an assist collected from Shun. Bin just had the damage.
I mean, yeah, you see the Jarvan coming up, and the NIP bot lane go, well, I guess we can't really do much. Basically, a solo bolo there coming in from the Renekton. Bin is online with this Crocodile. I talked about this in draft, and I know I've been on my soapbox about this champion, but if you think of Renekton as just an early game champ in 2026, you are misunderstanding where the power of that champ has come from. This guy's going to be a massive problem in these team fights, even down 500 gold. He's still going to be a nuisance inside lanes. And if he can find those flank angles, is going to be able to destroy NIP. And that's with that 4K gold lead. That was really the only part of the map that NIP had any success in, and now that's even starting to go the way of BLG.
Dominus just... It makes Renekton ridiculous. Everything else about Renekton, you can deal with. It falls off. It's all right. Dominus makes all that a problem again. It is on a timer, which, you know, fair enough. But it is going to be a big problem to play around that timer for NIP as the game goes on and the gold lead slips further and further into BLG's direction. Now 4.2 to the good for BLG, and it is NIP who are stuck defending their tier 2s, notably doing better than in game 1, where we still had all the tier 1s available or around for BLG. And this time, NIP have managed to take one.
Yeah, it's just going to be more siege coming down from BLG. This is the problem going up against this comp, is that Ezreal can free hit on these towers, basically all he wants. And there's not really a lot of ways to be able to punish this guy with the gold lead that he's been able to generate. He can poke you down and make it more difficult for you to be able to CS, as Knight now is starting to pick up plates elsewhere on the map. He's already at a 1.5k gold lead that's only going to grow. With the fact that he's going to have a lot of this free side lane pressure, you point out those objectives. Baron is up on the map if they do want to go for it. Do see some pressure onto the top side from Shun. Would need a teleport from Knight, but definitely could be available if they wanted to be more aggressive on this play, as NIP at least posture to try to get vision in the river.
Look out for those engages from On as well. Flash back up for the Nico, and when Flash has been up for On, it has resulted in double kills for Viper more times than it has not. 22 minutes into the game, and we might have another one cooking. Everyone grouping up topside as even Knight has recalled to take control of topside jungle for BLG, and that starts with the Raptors here. One still going to get the majority of them, and as I say that, Shun just... he flags and steals that Raptor. The big one!
Yeah, he's just taking everything. The big one, it's gone again. As Care just getting bursted down by Knight, who could be a target here, but Blast comes to safety. This is it, man. It's just free damage for BLG. It's going to force, once again, Care to play a lot safer at this point as he ends up backing. More pressure onto the bottom side. I want to circle back to something I called out a bit earlier. It's Randuin's Omen, second item for Guwon. I don't really know about the value of this right now going into the Ezreal. You need to be able to tank a lot of that poke, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to do so with this build. We'll see if it ends up paying off for him, but I have a feeling this Mundo might not quite be as tanky as you would expect at this point in the game.
A little bit of X to doubt action on the itemization for Mundo. We'll see how it works out as Guwon will be frontlining once again, moving right on forward on top of BLG. Hasn't taken too much damage just yet, but NIP don't want to give up on this engagement. BLG appear to be saying, why? Why are you pushing this so hard? We still have Viper, who is still a monster, and now a teleport flank as well. Moving on forward. He's going to collect 2 in his Pop Blossom, turning that into kills for BLG as Hoya melts in front of Viper. Care and Guwon are running away through the jungle. Guwon, to his credit, alive. But not much more to be said for him as Knight moves forward onto Care. Not a care in the world, and Viper now should be able to collect the kill and will do so. Okay, shifting his way forward. Guwon does get out alive, and Shun is dead, so BLG not too keen on doing the dragon, but they get everything but the dragon.
The engage is greedy, it's aggressive, and it still ends up working out for BLG. The positioning in that fight from NIP is disastrous as we see Knight on the flank, the TP coming in from Bin as well on. The flash engage onto Guwon and most specifically onto Assum. This Corki just gets deleted at the start of this fight, and no Corki means no damage. It doesn't really matter how much you can survive in these fights if you can't output anything else. Care does a good job to try to pull something back, but at this point, it's just a consolation prize. Care doesn't have enough damage to be able to do this on his own. Assum is 0-4-4 on this Corki. He's trying to reach his 3rd item, but look at the inventory of Viper on the other side. He's a full item up. That means free second dragon here for BLG, and free combat pressure coming in for them in any fight that they want. Baron is still on the map if they want to go and take it, and I really don't see any reason for them not to prioritize it with how dark the map is on the top side for NIP.
I'm coming out of this still thinking really, really well of what On has been able to do so far as well. The Pop Blossoms, really fantastic and definitely a big turning point in that fight. He was able to do that, and again, look out for the flash timer because that is where NIP must be most afraid. They let the Nico through. They didn't end up grabbing it early, instead choosing to forego that, giving up Nico Jarvan. Nico Jarvan have been the biggest thorn in their side when it comes to accelerating Viper and the rest of the map for BLG.
I mean, it's been there. Like, you want playmakers, you give BLG playmakers, they're going to make plays on them. If you want to complain about anything from BLG, it's that they sometimes make too many plays. But Bin, as we see at the bottom of your screen, 2,000 kills for him in the LPL. That is obviously a phenomenal accomplishment. I believe that shows that it puts him 20th all time on the LPL kill leaderboard. He's having a fantastic game on the Renekton despite going down early, ends up picking up that kill on the top side, and he's going to continue to be a big problem. Care's back. Oh no!
See how many kills Knight can collect. He sees Bin hitting 2K and he goes, watch this. Let me get a 3rd one in this game. Moving himself just a bit ahead of Bin and perfectly setting up his team for control of the map, which they seem eager to turn into the Baron that you mentioned mere minutes ago.
No mid laner means free Baron. Teleport available from Knight should be pretty free to be able to come in here and secure this objective. It's actually going to come in the mid lane, so this fight's going to start without him here.
Guwon wants to get into the pit and is going to be denied that with the Pop Blossom. Doesn't actually CC Mundo, but it sets up for everyone else too. Guwon eating a lot of damage, and the rest of his team's not having too much fun either. Shun still in the front line, still very much alive on this Jarvan, and with a flash to secure a double knock-up. They'll turn that quickly into a double kill for Viper, a double kill for Shun, and an ace for BLG. The Baron, a foregone conclusion now for the squad.
It's just the wallets are too thick as hair.
He's actually a monster.
No
Finds
way!
one kill.
No way!
Almost finds another. He does find another.
He's
Does he
alive!
save it? He's thinking about going back in. But Knight's here now. Baron's still likely going to be taken down. I don't see Care returning to the scene of the crime here.
Yeah, he's just going to disengage, but like, what a play from Care. That's actually a really valuable play for him to have made. You know, I was really confused about the teleport, but he saw the angle that I did not see, and now that's a 4-kill Aurora. At least it's something in the tank here for NIP. Still going to be Baron going over to BLG, and at most, that's a consolation prize for the mid laner, but still a really fun way for this to break down. We'll see how this fight ends up going. Knight is not here for a majority of this. He is going to be on the flank. He'll end up joining at least a little bit late, but that's what I'm talking about. You build Randu in second on Guwon. Look at how fast that health bar goes down. Assum once again pretending to play frontliner on Corki. You have to make sure that your positioning is ideal on this champion, and it's just not. Shun just kind of really sealing the deal with the flash there on the flag and drag, but BLG, it's a foregone conclusion with their wallet difference that they're going to be able to win the fight. It's what Care does after this that is truly incredible. Gets over the wall as Viper goes out to try and stop him. He arcane shifts. That's actually a huge turning point there, as if Ezreal's in the pit, it likely doesn't go that way for Care. Is able to pick up what is essentially a free pair of kills and at least get himself something, but the 10k gold lead would argue that well, and maybe the dead body of Care would argue that that wasn't as influential.
Yeah, as we come back to live, it doesn't seem like this intermediate step went too well for him. Being able to take 2 Barons off the table, great news, but being unable to defend the base does put NIP back in a little bit of a pickle. We'll take a look at how this happened once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ahri. It's Knight's Ahri, just finding the Aurora. All the tools
It's
burned
Knight's
and used. Yes, that is a very important distinction. Knight's Ahri, of course, a very legendary pick in the game of League of Legends. He is showing why in this game number 2. BLG looking to end this. They are pincering NIP in their own base.
Very scary when you are being pincered, but underneath your own inhibitor tower.
Oh, awesome.
Maybe 400 HP left on the man, is going to have to back away and quickly heal up. Unfortunately, that will not be quick enough to defend mid lane inhibitor tower, and unlikely to be inhibitor either, as remember, BLG still have all of this poke from Ezreal backing them up. They will end up starting to back away, and On decides that's simply not happening. That is another kill going the way of BLG as Viper sits untouched in the back line. Assum tries to back away, but Knight moves in and assassinates him. Now looks for Zhuo. Ahri is unstoppable, and Knight picks up a double, makes it a triple, and turns that into a game-winning moment for BLG.
Bilibili Gaming dominate 2 games in this series. They're 1 away from punching their ticket to upper bracket round 2, and they do so in, let's just say, exciting fashion, in classy fashion here from BLG. Hey, just pick the comp that has the pressure and use the pressure to win the game. It's really that simple, Dia.
It really is. I want to say again, this Nico pick, really good. We might not have seen On live through all the fights. In fact, he died in most of them, but man, did he make sure that his team was winning them, and very evident in that last fight as well. Knight, of course, deserves to be credited with the fantastic cleanup, and Viper with a lot of the damage, but man, On's Nico setting up for so many critical plays that game, Kman. It can't escape me.
And it's the same as game number 1, right? You put them on these playmakers, these champions whose whole identity is moving around the map and creating these explosive plays. There's arguably nobody better in the entire league at doing that than On. On gets a lot of criticism, and part of it is very fair. A lot of it is like, okay, why are you here? You know, you got to make sure that you're warding properly. Like, there's a lot of real criticism towards On. If there's not a criticism you can throw at him, it's his ability to make plays on these more explosive types of champions, and this Nico was once again phenomenal. Every time he had flash available, he was looking, he was scouting, he was spotting, especially for this Corki, who just ended up being his target in basically every single fight, and he was pulling it off. He got a lot of gold for his team in this one.
Yeah, specifically for Viper, who was the hammer with which BLG attacked the nail of NIP in this particular series. Once we did get a little bit later, past the mid game and into the point where Knight had a couple of items. We saw that shift to Ahri pretty quickly. Ahri was a menace in the later stage of this game, but man, was Viper terrifying for the entirety of the game.
I mean, that's your Viper Ezreal. Like, you want the classic Viper Ezreal game. There you go. You got it. You got Knight Ahri and Viper Ezreal in the same game. So, you know, that's going to look pretty good on the resume. It just goes back to this identity that we had talked about for BLG. You know, we made it pretty clear, I think, in the draft that one of these sides was a little bit more advantageous than the other in terms of the way that they ended up picking. But even just the overall composition alongside the player familiarity for these champions, it's just absurd that BLG was allowed to get away with this in game number 2, and they took this opportunity. They said, hey, you're going to give us Jarvan, Ahri, Ezreal, Nico, even the Renekton on the top side. We're not going to waste that opportunity. We are going to dominate you everywhere across the map.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way that they played this. I don't think that anybody was really going to find any fault in it, especially because this was foreseeable from the way that Game 1 went to the draft. It was up to NIP to change the course of this game, and that evaded them. Knight still dealing around 30,000 damage, funnily enough, but Viper picks up the Ezreal and manages to top that. It is a race to the top between these two as it appears in the series so far, and right now, Viper keeps that first place on the leaderboard. NIP, just not a whole lot that they could do or did do.
Look, I really don't want to rub salt in the wound because it's already been pretty bad for NIP, but Assum doing, I think, like the 8th most damage in this game is a bit of a problem for the Corki. That is a champion that farms the damage charts at the end of these games, but he was playing frontline Corki in this one. I mean, his positioning was just not good enough. I think that is maybe the calm way to say it, is that he needed to be a bit better in terms of where he was setting up. On was constantly finding those engages, and that is a massive problem for NIP. It's the discipline. It's been a massive issue for them, even in group perseverance, right? Like, this is not a new problem for NIP. They were losing late games to WE after generating large leads in the early game as well because of just their lack of discipline in these team fights. You can maybe get away with that against WE, NIP, even WE and EDG, I should say, even against an IG, right? I think you can get away with that. Not BLG. You're not getting away with that against on Nico. You have to make sure you're playing perfect. And Assum in plays like this, stepping up and just allowing himself to be, you know, killed basically for free. Like, these are mistakes you just can't make.
Yeah, it is difficult. I think NIP are having an awkward time finding what the distance is for everyone, but specifically for their carries, who tend to be significantly squishier, where the line is between being active and being dead. And in this particular game, and even in that particular clip, I think we saw Kara experience that. He's fighting a team fight that, for all intents and purposes, it's all right for him to be there. He has the rest of his team as backup, and same thing happening here. You want to get active in the river, you want to show presence, and yet you take one step too far, and BLG know where that line is, but NIP seemingly blind to the line in the sand that they have crossed because, like you mentioned, this isn't something that they've really been punished on before.
I think the big problem here is just that it's the look at, like, Assum's positioning in this fight. He Valks back out, but then he steps back up and gets hit by the charm from the Ahri. And like, mistakes like that, it's just you can't really be making them. There really isn't any peel on this team. Dr. Mundo is your frontline tank. You've got a Nami as your support. You have to play safer. You have to understand that these fights need to kind of go longer. You have to play around your Mundo frontline, play that front to back, and it just didn't feel like everybody was on the same page for that. Once again, you know, Kara actually being the one to go down this time in the exchange, but it just felt like NIP drafted this late game comp that they wanted to scale through, and then had no idea what they wanted to do to get there. This Corki Nami wasn't really able to win lane in the same way. Hoya was doing a good job on the top side, but ended up getting solo killed later on in the game as well. So it really just all fell apart. To me, this is almost identically a repeat from game number 1, and it felt like the lessons just weren't learned.
Yeah, and it's like you say, a very, very similar story. Even when we look back at the draft of this game and think about the Aurora lock-in that happened, I mean, we had 3 lanes that were favorably picked in theory. Corki, Nami meant to get priority, had a decent amount of it. Aurora meant to get priority. Sorry, you're playing into Knight's Ahri. That's simply not going to be the story here. And then you look at the top side, and Jason to Renekton, like you said, actually does go pretty well until suddenly, much like the Ambessa matchup, it doesn't.
I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, it doesn't help that you got an Ezreal on the bottom side at 9-1 and 8, who's doing 35% of his team's damage and just absolutely rolling over this game. Of course, credit to Viper. He was incredible. I would have been happy with either Viper or On as player of the game. I think it absolutely should have gone to one of the members of the bot lane, but this is what we're talking about. If you're drafting winning lanes, if you're drafting Jace, if you're drafting Corki and Nami on the bottom side, you have to win those lanes. It is paramount that you generate those leads, and it's just not been something that NIP have been capable of doing consistently.
I will say, to NIP's credit, we didn't see their confidence fall apart like it did in Game 1, really evidently in that play in the river against Viper. I felt like this game, for all that it did not go their way either, for all that it seemed like a very similar story, also seemed like one where NIP were perhaps a little bit more comfortable, at least trying things, at least trying to defend, at least trying to get aggressive at all points in the game. And that, at the very least, is heartening growth to see between Game 1 and Game 2. Will that growth continue? Will they finally find a winning solution in Game number 3? Only time will tell, and we will find out after the break.